I'm excited to bring in our next speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome Mary Ellen, Dr. Mary Ellen, ladies and gentlemen. As a lecturer and a director of online and blended learning initiatives at MIT, she trains and mentors postdoctoral fellows and students, manages the digital learning projects for department. Mary has led execution for digital learning strategies for the Department of Biology at MIT over 7 years. Prior to her current position, Mary earned her PhD in biology from MIT and then taught at Harvard University. Let's go ahead, put our hands together and welcome Mary Ellen on board.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. I'm really excited to share with you our information about what we've been doing in the terms of evidence-based design and online and blended courses. So since I've started my career in teaching, I've been really interested in how can we enhance the student learning experience to incorporate evidence-based teaching practices. And this became especially a topic this past year when people have switched to online and blended learning and wanted to know what are the best practices, what should we be doing? And in addition to that, I'll talk today about what we are learning from our own courses and our studies there. So to give you some more background about myself, I started in the current work with Moops in late 2012 and early 2013. I started working with Eric Lander, who's shown in the middle here, and you may recognize him because he's now on the cabinet for President Biden as the science advisors. So we worked together at that time with the other biology people shown here to put together a MOOC for the edX platform. It was one of the first probably 10 MOOCs on the edX platform in the early days, but it was a very exciting time, a very large project, a very much a project where we didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't really know the future of MOOCs at that time. But through that, we learned a lot, the creation of that course. And in that learning, then we had to decide as a department at MIT, will we continue on with these projects or was it just a one-off project and that's it? And so the department head at the time wanted the department to be a leader in this and decided to create a position for me to oversee the MOOC projects, but also to oversee blended and hybrid learning experiences for the MIT courses by incorporating what we were creating in the MOOCs for the MIT students. And so with that, I built a team. And so now I'm showing the current members of our team. And Dr. Darcy Gordon works on MOOCs and blended learning. Dr. Monica Avello, she works closely with intro bio courses and she used to work on MOOCs, so she knows how to apply all of those materials into those intro bio courses and what we know about applying the learning sciences. Dr. Summer Morell, she works with the teaching assistant training. So not only are we collaborating with the faculty to do better things with their courses, but we're also trying to work with the younger generation to train them in the best practices. And Dr. Caitlin Friend, she started recently working with MOOCs and blended learning as well. And all of these members, we have PhDs in biology actually, and experience in teaching. And they had this very strong interest in continuing in education as a career path. They have a lot of experience in and during their time in the position with managing course projects and managing courses, also with the technology and building their skill set there, and especially with learning how to apply the learning sciences and becoming expert in that. And they all have characteristics that are very key to success in this job. Having a growth mindset, wanting to learn more, also wanting to pursue a change agency. So meaning that you want to have a higher ed, not just stay the status quo, but really how can we do better things for our students? I'm also going to talk about some work that Virginia Katie Blackwell finished with us during her time as finishing as an undergrad. But the good news is that she'll be starting at MIT as a PhD student in the fall. So with a lot of questions about online learning, and especially in MOOC space, there was questions about how to apply the learning sciences and really were MOOCs applying the learning sciences. There was a lot of criticisms. So we decided a few years ago, we should write out how we apply the learning sciences in a MOOC and really get into the details of how we're using evidence-based practices. So this graph here is showing on the outside circles in gray are showing the learning science principles. So we have scaffolding, Bloom's taxonomy, advanced organizers, concrete examples, self-explanation, worked examples. These are all principles that show evidence to improve learning experiences for students. On the inside circle, we have our parts of our course: problem sets, test yourself questions, study resources, the discussion forum. And we have those colored and organized by color, with pre-instruction, multimedia in yellow, formative assessments in blue, and summative assessments in red. And these are all written in the context of our one MOOC of biochemistry, but it really applies to all of our MOOCs and has since the beginning. And so if you're interested in learning more, I have links on all of my slides with 2 papers as I go forward. So I want to show you an example of the application of learning sciences and what that means, and specifically talk about the multimedia theory of learning. And with this picture, you don't have to know the details, but this is something you may see typically in a biochemistry course talking about Edmond degradation. And the student will just get this picture and the professor would speak through and explain what's happening. But what we did in a video version, applying multimedia theory, I'll show you now. So hopefully this will play for you.
The idea behind Edmond degradation is really simple. I have a peptide, and I want to know what are the amino acids 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the only trick behind Edmond degradation is I find a clever chemical way to label that first amino acid, and I cut it off. And I detect this. I say, that is this amino acid. And then I take the rest of the peptide that I left behind, and I label the second amino acid. And I chop that off. And I say, what was that? And by progressively walking my way through each cycle of degrading the peptide, one amino acid at a time, I detect what these different amino acids are. Okay? That's Edmond degradation.
So hopefully you can see with that video that it's much clearer when you have the images and words appearing as they're used versus an overwhelming image as a start, and really like taking out extraneous information and those sort of principles we were applying in that video. So another question we have really applied to our molecular biology MOOC. We noticed that we were creating videos that were animated, scripted, very planned out, applying the learning principles. And what we found with those videos that are depicted on the left here is that they were being watched and completed less than the videos on the right, where the majority of the videos were a professor recording of a classroom and a professor at the board talking. And we really wanted to know why. If we were doing what should have been the right thing for the videos and animation should be more engaging, even, why were students completing it and watching it less? And so one of the things that we want to eliminate really is it a matter of the time of the video, the length of the video? And so when we tested in our own context, we looked at the percent viewers completing the video versus the length of video. And then we could see that in blue, there are a lot of these animation videos. All the blues are the animated videos, and in black are all the other course videos. And so you can see that even for the black dots, we have length and completion. You can have videos over 10 minutes and most of the students are still watching those and completing them. And so there's 2 interesting things here. One is that it wasn't a problem with time for these videos. And the other is that the content of the video and the videos themselves actually matter for completion. It's not really just a factor of the length of the video and there's not a magic number for the length of the video as other research does show. So I think it's important to test in your own context, but in the context of our course, we didn't see that cutoff at a certain video length as well. And what we see for this study is really that we think it's more about the scripting that is causing the drop-off. So another question that comes up with online courses is really like, should you run them instructor-paced versus self-paced? So instructor-paced means that you're releasing content gradually. You have multiple deadlines, and they're short duration, at least in the way that we're running them on edX, that they typically run about 50 to 60 days. But for self-paced courses, you release all the content in the beginning, and there's one deadline at the end. And these run typically a longer duration, almost a year that they're open. And so we wanted to know in self-paced where they should have, as learners, more flexibility to complete the course. Are learners engaging more, and are they completing more? And what we found in the study is that we don't see that they're completing more or engaged more in the self-paced course. And so in fact, in some metrics, it's lower than instructor-paced. But what we did find is there's some differences with the range of days that students are involved in the course or engaged with the course. So if we look at completers in this quantitative biology course, and when the course was run self-paced, shown in red in the middle, versus instructor-paced, showed in blue, we see that the students are completing, submitting problems in a greater range of days. So what that means is that the time from the first problem submission to the last problem submission is a greater length of time. So they're working on the course off and on a greater range of time. But if we looked at the total number of days, we see different results. And that in blue, the instructor-paced course, in red, we have the self-paced courses again. And in self-paced, we actually see that there's a smaller total number of days, so that they're submitting problems and signing into the course in fewer number of days. So you see it's lower, so that could be that there's certain students that are trying to complete faster, that they're using self-paced to just finish the course in a smaller amount of time. It also means that it could be students submitting the course materials near the deadline and cramming, which we don't want. It's not a good thing. So another question that has come up a lot this past year, but also in general with online courses, is that we wanted to think about or try to address the issue with the potential of cheating. And so we have in our introduction to biology course, we started a competency exam model, a new assessment model to address this, to separate the learning from the certification to help prevent cheating, but keeping the best practices for learning. So within the course, we have formative assessment for learning. So really that's all the existing initial course content, problem sets, exams, there's videos, text, pictures, available self-paced with feedback, and they're formative, but they're not graded. It counts for no score related to the course. But our competency exam is set up differently. It's a summative exam at the end of the course, and it's only available one specific week. It's timed. There's limited access. Only the people who pay for the verified track, not the auditors, have access to it. It's randomized as well. So within one page of the question, there's multiple versions of that type of problem. There's no feedback on correctness, so they don't know as they work along if they're getting it right or wrong. And there's no access post-completion. There's no discussion forum as well, so people can't be sharing information, giving away answers to others. The competency exam covers most of the course. Instead of just testing bits of topics as we go, you're able to integrate all of the materials together. It's around 100 questions. We distribute it across Bloom's taxonomy, so there's higher level and lower level questions, so they can really test as many learning objectives and test mastery as much as possible. And when we studied, does our design work for the competency exam, we looked for odd patterns and statistical, with the statistical measure of the Gutman error in the performance as well as the time patterns. So in red, we have a course run that happened before our competency exam model. And in gray, we have the model of the course running in the competency exam. And these are people who completed the course and looking at the odd behavior. And so we see that before the competency exam, we did have aberrant responses in either time or performance. And so we can see that's we know from prior research that's an indicator of cheating. And so once the competency exam model was in place, we could actually deter cheating without using any proctoring, but just by doing something with the course design. So another big question from this past year is really what has been the impact of the pandemic on our MOOCs? And so we know from our own courses, but also from others, that MOOCs saw a great increase in enrollment. And so we looked at the Introduction to Biology course and looked at several runs that happened in 2019. And we could see that the number of participants were between 4,000 and 6,000. And the percent of those learners participating and actually doing something in the course was around 70%. But when we have the pandemic runs during 2020, we see that during March 2020, we actually saw an increase in the percent of people participating, and that we also had way greater numbers in participants. In July, we still had more people participating, but we can see the trend is going back down for enrollment, more back to normal. And we have the percent of learners is also interestingly down. And so what I wanted to, then we wanted to look at this more and really get into what's happening with the engagement and look at this is, we looked at many factors in the paper, but one here is just looking at the unique views of video. And we can see that across auditors, verified and certified, that interestingly, the certified group watched more videos during the pandemic. And so they really were engaged in the videos, the people who completed the course. But in July 2020, across all types of learners, auditors, the verified track, and the people who completed, they were all lower in video viewing. So one reason for that could be because people are returning to the same course again, they're coming back to the MOOC again, and they don't need to watch it again. But there could just be this idea of fatigue that people were feeling during the pandemic, and a lot of engagement and excitement in March 2020, but then getting tired by July. So we want to look too at, well, what does this mean for the people who, how many verified, and the percent of participants who verified did go up in numbers for the 2020 runs in March and July, and percent wise as well, the overall percent of those who verified did go up. And so they're choosing to join this track that they could possibly earn a certificate. But if we looked at the percent who certified of those in the verified track, the numbers were higher than prior times, but as a percentage, that was down. The percent who actually successfully completed the course was down in 2020. And that's the same if we look at the percent certified of those who attempted the competency exam, because we know that in this course, a lot of people don't even try the exam, but they're signed up for verified. So of those, we take out the people who never try, we have a much higher success rate of those who complete the course and earn a certificate, as high as 45%, you can see here. But in the pandemic runs, we do see that is decreased as well. And another thing we were interested in is really, we know in higher ed in general, that a lot of people were looking for online resources, and we wanted to know, are there more potential students or teachers in our MOOCs? And one way we could do that or look for that is just looking for .edu registration emails. And we looked across learners, participants, verified and certified, and we found that the percent who, the percent EDU emails were higher for the people who were verified or completed the course and certified. And of course, this is an underestimate because a lot of students or teachers could be using their personal email addresses too. So we definitely did see that impact during the pandemic. So the key takeaways from today are to build a system to implement evidence-based teaching practices, apply the learning sciences, but also remember to test in your own context to be sure what you're seeing is happening for your learners and in your courses. Other video content features matter more than length sometimes. Learners use the flexibility of self-paced courses, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily more successful. Course design can deter cheating. And the pandemic definitely increased enthusiasm for online learning at first, but later possibly led to some burnout. But I do think it did draw in a lot of new teachers and students to online learning. And I think that will continue, that we have many more people who have tried it now and will continue to use it. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And I just wanted to let you know you can reach out more to contact me, but I'll try to address some of the questions that are here today as well. Okay, so looking at some of the questions, how do we balance the rise in MOOCs with evidence-based learning emphasized at universities, degrees, certificates? I think that's, we shouldn't, we should be trying to apply evidence-based practices in both contexts, and hopefully the line between what is on-campus teaching and what is happening online, that's going to be blurred even more. I think more blended and hybrid learning will be happening. And so really trying to just incorporate it in all contexts, that's really important. But really at our university, what we find is most effective is having people who understand the culture of the university, understand the faculty and where they're coming from and how they're trying to teach, and really trying to come up with plans on how to do this to have an impact as much as possible. So another question that I see here is, what is the future of MOOCs in relation to online learning? Yeah, I think this is something that will continue to play out. And I think when I first started, people thought MOOCs wouldn't last more than a few years. And we see that they're continuing today and more popular than ever today. So we really, they will continue. And I think similar to our last speaker, where he was talking about, there's a huge population of adult learners that need to learn just in time and need to learn certain skills as they go in their career paths. And so that's going to often be a different population than people that are going to university and for a degree. And so there may be some overlap between those populations, and I'm sure there is. And I think, a lot of our students, even at MIT, used MOOCs before they came to MIT. And this will, continue to play out. But I think that there's room and space for both types of courses in the future. And another question is, how efficient is online proctoring? And I don't really know the answer to that, or maybe what the question is meaning, but efficiency, like we found when we tried an online proctoring tool last summer for a certain type of exam we were running at MIT, that we really did not like it. There were, in addition to all the reasons not to like online proctoring and invasion of student privacy, the issues with possible biases, but we just didn't like that it caused so many errors for the students, and we just had to deal with trying to solve those errors so much, and it distracted from like the point of the exam. And so the last thing I see here in the chat is just, would there be a need to design frameworks to guide multiple models of LMS being used to include competency skill sets? And so if I understand the question correctly, I think that's a great idea to try to, within the learning management systems, build more abilities to try to run courses and have online experiences in different modes. And the competency-based learning is something that I think will continue to grow as well, and really focusing on testing skill sets for students and testing them even like in a time manner, instead of having them sit through an entire semester of a course. If they learn and master something, then they should be able to move on, and being more flexible in that way in their learning as well. So I want to thank you again for letting me speak today, and I enjoyed the experience, and I hope to talk to some of you more.
It was a pleasure having you on our platform. Thank you for coming and sharing insights. I'm sure everybody is delighted to have you on board and to listen to your session. Thank you so much once again.